cerebellum, like cerebrum, the gray matter lies outside and the white matter lies inside. And cerebellum is the part of the hindbrain which consists of the bones, medulla and the cerebellum. Cerebellum is very small as compared to the cerebrum, but the function of the cerebellum, important function number one is the coordination of the voluntary muscular movements. The first word comes coordination. Of voluntary muscular movements of the human body. Second function is maintenance of equilibrium or balance of the body. Third is it maintains the tone of the muscles. So these are the three functions, main functions of the cerebellum. We see whole of the brain, and the cerebrum is the largest part. Then the midbrain, smallest part of the brain, bones, medulla, continued into the spinal cord. Superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, this much is the only cerebellum. Cerebrum is very small, but very important functions are given to cerebellum. First is the coordination of the muscles. What is the meaning of this word, coordination of voluntary muscular movement? For example, I want to pick this duster. This is the voluntary act, muscular act. First I will think, I will make a decision that I want to pick. Which part of this cerebrum is activated? Purkinje area. That is the decision or judgment. Then this thought will jump to which area of the prefrontal gyrus or motor area? Upper limb. Because my hand will move. My body is stationary. Only my hand will move and pick up. Then this message will go down to the crus, coronary radiata, then posterior limb of the internal capsule, then medial 2/6 of the crus cerebri, then bones, then pyramid of the medulla, then 80% cross to opposite side, and they descend in the spinal cord as lateral corticospinal tract, and all the nerves C5 to C6, C7, C8 which form the brachial plexus will go to the upper limb. Out of 31 pairs of the spinal nerves, only 5 are going into the upper limb movement from C5 to T1. Now this message will go to these nerves and my hand will move. This is the function of cerebrum, precentral gyrus with the spinal cord. This is how the brain works. Now I want to pick. For picking, I want the coordination of my thumb and finger. Now here comes the cerebellum. This grip. If cerebellum is cut and thrown out of my cerebellum or my head, I can reach here because this is the act of cerebrum. But to pick, it requires coordination of the voluntary muscular movements. Number 2 is the equilibrium. How this small part of the brain is controlling the maintaining our balance or the equilibrium. Now I am standing, you are sitting only because of cerebellum. If I cut and throw the cerebellum from your brain, you will not be able to sit, you will fall right or left or forward or backward. This is the function. How does the muscles of the human body, they are bilateral, symmetrical. Whatever muscles are present in our back side, right side, same is on the left. Both the muscles, they contract equally. Then we are having the straight posture. I am standing because my lower limb muscles of the right and left side both are balanced. Both are acting simultaneously to maintain the standing posture. Same is in your sitting posture. Muscles of your back are making you to stay. So that is done by cerebellum. So cerebellum gives messages. Cerebellum knows each and every movement of the synovial joints of the body. Every fraction of the second. There are so many thousands of the synovial joints in our body. It maintains only because cerebellum knows that which joint of the body lies in which state, whether flexion, extension, or any position. So every fraction of the second, this information is going automatically to the cerebellum. And when it got this information, cerebellum will act. It will give message to the muscles of the right and left side that you act, you contract. Here cerebellum doesn't come. Cerebellum is controlling the muscular movements. That is called the subconscious level of the brain. Cerebellum is the only conscious level of the brain. All other parts of the brain, they are subconscious level. What they are doing, we do not know. From where they are getting the data or the information, we don't know. But cerebellum, precentral and postcentral gyrus, they tell us that how the sensations are going and how we are moving. So that is it. Third function is the maintenance of the tone of the muscles. Because cerebellum has to act on the muscles. So muscle has to be in a tonic state. What is tonic state? Muscles in the awake position. When we are awake, they always remain in a slight state of contraction. That is called tone of the muscle. Slight state. Slight state of contraction is called tone of the muscle. When you go sleep, muscle become relaxed. No tone. If you touch a sleeping person, touch the muscles. They are like your wax. But touch your own body when you are awake. You feel below your skin the muscle. They are a bit hard. This hardness is called the tone of the muscle. So this is how the three functions have been given to the cerebellum to control the human body, these functions. Now first we will do the morphology, structure of the cerebellum. As we know, every part of the brain is made up of grey matter and white matter. So it is also. The cerebellum is also made up of grey matter and white matter. And also we know that every part of the brain is hollow from inside. That is called ventricle and it contains CSF, same is the hair. So it is also hollow from inside. The cavity of the cerebellum is called the fourth ventricle. That we will do when we finish whole of the cerebellum. So first we take the grey matter of the cerebellum. Grey matter of the cerebellum is of three types. Number one is cerebellar cortex. Second is called vermis. And third is called the cerebellar nuclei. So we describe the cerebellar grey matter under three headings. As we have described the cerebellum under three headings. Number one, cerebral cortex, insula, and basal ganglia. Same is it. If you remember the cerebellum. First is the cerebral cortex. So it lies at the periphery or outside, and when we handle or take the cerebellum in the hand after removal from the human body, how it looks, see. It is dorso-ventrally compressed. Dorso-ventrally compressed. Dorso-ventrally or supero-inferiorly compressed. or it is like it is biconvex. And this line which is dividing the dorsal or the superior surface with the ventral or the inferior surface, this sulcus is circumferential all around the cerebellum, and it is called horizontal sulcus. So this is the horizontal sulcus, all around the superior and inferior part of the cerebellum. The horizontal sulcus. And when we look closely the surface of the cerebellum, what we see, there are multiple sulci and gyri. Multiple, small or large sulci. Whole of the surface is filled with the sulci and gyri. But on the superior surface, a sulcus is very much prominent and a bit deep also, and continuous and longer also from right to left. So it is called the primary sulcus. Divide the superior surface into anterior and posterior parts. This is also having the multiple sulci and gyri. So like cerebellum, it is also having two hemispheres, right and left cerebellar hemisphere. It has got the superior surface and it has got a inferior surface because it is lying horizontally, separated from cerebrum, lying on the dorsal surface of the bones and medulla oblongata. So that is the anatomical position. Anteriorly there is a notch. This is called the anterior cerebellar notch. And posteriorly there is also a deep notch. It is deeper than the anterior one. This is called the cerebellar vallecula. A valley-like depression is there posteriorly, that is called the cerebellar vallecula. This is how to identify which is the anterior, which is the posterior part of the cerebellum when you held it in the anatomical position. So whenever you have been given any part of the brain, cerebrum, hindbrain, you have to hold in the anatomical position. What is the anatomical position? As it belongs to your brain or the head, not the examiner. So practice it, how to hold the structures in your hand. So that is it. So that is the cerebellar hemisphere, right and left. Then come the vermis. Vermis is the median part of the cerebellum. Median part. Like two cerebral hemispheres were joined by the corpus callosum. But here the two cerebellar hemispheres, they are joined by, not by white matter, but they are joined by gray matter, that is called the vermis. So vermis is the median gray matter which joins the right with this left cerebellar hemisphere. As the part of the cerebellum, it has got superior vermis and the inferior vermis. Whatever is on the superior surface of the vermis, on the back side will be the inferior surface. So if it is a cerebellum, if it is median is the vermis, superior vermis, opposite below will be the inferior vermis. And it is made up of small 9 pieces or 9 parts. And all are differently named. Different small part are of the superior vermis and the inferior vermis. So you need not to remember these names because they are Greek words and their meanings, they are not much important. Only you have to remember two parts of this vermis, two lobes of this vermis. One is called the flocculus and second is called nodule. And together they are called the flocculonodular lobe. Flocculus looks like the leaf-like structure, flocculus, and nodule is round almost in here. So that is called the flocculonodular lobe. And what is the function of this flocculonodular lobe? Equilibrium, maintenance of the equilibrium or balance of the human body. If I cut and throw this small part of the cerebellum, that is the flocculonodular lobe, I will fall and you will also fall. The small part is responsible for me. Flocculonodular lobe. Another thing about the vermis is that if I cut the sagittal section of the vermis in the midline, sagittal section and two cerebral hemispheres, they are separated. And if I see the cut end of medial surface of the cerebellum, it looks like the leaves of the pteridophyte you have learned in the botany, that is called the Pteris vitata or fern. So it gives a fern-like appearance. Because of this fern-like appearance, it is called the arbor vitae. Arbor vitae means tree-like. Arbor vitae cerebelli. Arbor means tree. So if you cut and see the cut section of the cerebellum, only vermis part, it looks like this. Peripheral part of this cut 9 lobes will be cortex, and in between their midway will be the white matter. So this grey and white matter of the arrangement of these 9 lobes gives the appearance, that is the fern leaf-like. Fern leaf-like appearance, that is called the arbor vitae. So this is the sagittal section of the vermis only. Vermis part of the. If you cut the cerebral hemisphere, you won't get the tree-like appearance. It is only the median vermis part. The upper one is the superior vermis and the below is the inferior vermis. Only the vermis part is visible like this. That is called arbor vitae cerebelli. One more organ, when we cut, it looks like the fern-like appearance in the human body, and that organ lies in the females. Anybody ask you, name of that organ is uterus. Muscles of the uterus, they also look when we cut the uterus sagittal section. That is called the arbor vitae uteri. Arbor vitae uteri is the name given to the tree-like or the fern-like, fern leaf-like appearance of the cut section of the uterus. So that you should know about the vermis part, the function and the morphology of it. Then comes the cerebellar nuclei. Cerebral nuclei, like the basal ganglia of the cerebrum, they are compact masses of the grey matter. Solid masses of the grey matter which are hidden in the right and left cerebellar hemisphere. As we have seen, the basal ganglia were deep inside the cerebrum. Same is here. So when we dissect this cerebellar hemisphere, inside them we see there are 4 cerebellar nuclei, 4 on right and 4 on the left side. Names of these nuclei, they can be remembered by the alphabetically A, B, C, D. So a nucleus start from the D word, that is called the dentate nucleus, tooth-like. Dentate nucleus. E for emboliformis. Emboliformis is the second name of, other name of the one more nucleus. F for fastigious. And G for globosus. So these 4 names you have to remember. The 4 nuclei of the cerebellar hemisphere. Dentatus, emboliformis, fastigious, and globosus is the name. So they are all Greek words. So when you cut the horizontal section of the cerebellum, in this you will find the situated these nuclei. The dentatus nucleus it is tooth-like. So the shape is like this. Tooth-like appears. This is the dentatus nucleus. Then the globosus, emboliformis, and fastigious. So these are the 4 nuclei of the cerebellum. So this finishes with the gray matter of the cerebellum. Now come the white matter of the cerebellum. So white matter, already we know it. So white matter of the cerebellum is constituted by 3 peduncles: superior cerebellar peduncle, middle cerebellar peduncle, and inferior cerebellar peduncle. So as we have done yesterday, these 3 peduncles, they join the superior cerebellar peduncle joins the midbrain with the cerebellum. The middle joins the pons with the cerebellum. The inferior joins the medulla with the. So all these 3 peduncles or the bundles of the white matters or the nerve fibers, they join the brain stem with the cerebellum. And they have afferent and efferent fibers in them. Out of them, inferior cerebellar peduncle is the most important because it contains about 1 dozen afferent and efferent fibers. The middle cerebellar peduncle is only afferent, while the superior having the afferent and efferent fibers. So these fibers which are going from the cerebellum to the other part of the brain or coming from other part of the brain into the cerebellum, they are the afferent and efferent. It means cerebellum is widely or widespreadly connected to the different parts of the brain because it has to perform the function of 3 functions we have done. So this responsibility has to be given the cerebellum. For that, cerebellum requires the connections of the different part of the brain. For example, the inferior cerebellar peduncle, there are afferent and efferent fibers. So fibers which are going from cerebellum to the other part of the, they are 3. They are called cerebellovestibular, cerebelloreticular, cerebellocranial, trigeminal. So these fibers, they go to their different. So name are suggested. First, the cerebellovestibular, it goes from cerebellum, and the axons will relay in the vestibular area we have done. Vestibular area lies on the dorsal surface of the pons and medulla. So it will end. Because vestibular area come from vestibule of the internal ear. Remember the bony labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth. Parts of the membranous labyrinth were 3 semicircular canals. So when they are stimulated, so 3 semicircular canals, two are horizontal and one is vertical, and they are filled with the endolymph. So whenever our head position changes, the semicircular canals containing endolymph will be disturbed, and this disturbance will generate an impulse. That impulse from the semicircular canal is picked by the vestibular nerve of the 8th cranial nerve. This information of the changing of the head will be immediately, within a fraction of the second, is given to vestibular area of the floor of 4th ventricle in the pons and medulla dorsal surface. And this position, because whenever we are falling, the forward, backward, right or left, that is where you fall. You are sitting also, in the sitting also, where you can fall. Forward, backward, right or left. So semicircular canal, 3 are here, 3 are here. Here 3 are, they are 2 horizontal and vertical. When you start falling on the right side, your head, whenever your body is changing, your head is changing. So when I go there, what will happen? Horizontal canals will be here. Whole of the endolymph will come in this semicircular canal. And the vestibular nerve starting from here will be stimulated. And this information is given quickly to the cerebellum. Now cerebellum knows that person is falling on the right side, as vice versa on the left side. If you are falling forward, the vertical semicircular canal will be like this, and whole of the endolymph will be collected here. This nerve will be stimulated. If you are falling back, the vertical semicircular canal will go like this. Here, whole of the endolymph will be filled here. The semicircular here will be stretched because fluid is now collected here. They are expansile canals, and the nerve starting from here will be stimulated, and this information is immediately given to the vestibular area. And immediately cerebellum comes into power, knows that person is falling in there. So that is the function of semicircular canal. That's why this area is called vestibular area, because this is called vestibule, which consists of 3 semicircular canals and 1 saccule, where they are connected. Then that tube goes to the cochlea, round window, oval window, promontory. You know the middle ear. So this middle ear, so this promontory is there. This is the first, it is made by first coil of the cochlea. And this is the round window and oval window. So this information is going to the internal ear and coming to the brain, and see how they are reaching the cerebellum. Cerebellum knows it, because semicircular canals of your internal ear are indirectly connected to your cerebellum, which is responsible for your. So this is how brain works. Almost we are finishing whole of the brain. Now you are came to know which part of the brain doing which function in the human. So that is the last one. So that's how it works. Second is the cerebelloreticular. So reticular formation is the mixture of the grey and white matter. In the brainstem, there is a long area. So after doing the grey and white matter of the cerebellum, now we will do the last part of the cerebellum, that is called the applied anatomy of the cerebellum. Applied anatomy hypertrophy or what is called the dysfunction. Dysfunction of the cerebellum, or in other words, if your cerebellum is cut and thrown out of your brain, what will be your problems? No doubt it is a very small part of the brain as compared to the cerebrum and the brain stem together, but still it has got three vital functions to perform. Number one is the coordination of the voluntary muscular movements of the cerebrum. Second function is to maintain the equilibrium and the posture of the human body. Third function is to maintain the tone of the muscles. So when these three functions they are abolished, when the cerebellum is damaged by any of the T, T and H, either trauma, thromboembolism, depriving the arterial supply of the cerebellum is lost due to the, or a tumor is pressing on the cerebellum, or there is a hemorrhage of the arteries supplying the cerebellum. So because of this, a person will come with some problem. And there is a long list of the complaints, signs and symptoms of this cerebellar disease or cerebellar dysfunction or clinical aspect. So a person who is having its cerebellum damage, he or she shows these signs and symptoms. Number one is ataxia. Number two, dysmetria. Number three, dysarthria. Number four, nystagmus. Number five function, dysfunction, is the action or intention tremors. Then he or she shows disequilibrium. And atonia or hypotonia. So these are the main signs and symptoms of the cerebellar disease or a person whose cerebellum is not working. So ataxia means patient is unable to walk on a straight line. He cannot walk straight line, he will walk like a zigzag or irregular path, or what is called the drunken gait. Then dysmetria. Dysmetria means he is unable to pinpoint anything, or he doesn't know the distance between the objects as well as between his body and the surroundings. So there is a misunderstanding of the distance. Then dysarthria. He cannot speak properly. He can speak because his Broca's area is okay, his cerebrum is okay, his middle cerebral artery is okay. But he cannot spell his own name. So syllables spoken by a person is not understood by a normal person. He can speak, but he doesn't know the meaning. It cannot be understood by the second person. So there is a speech disorder. That is called the dysarthria. Then nystagmus. Nystagmus is a sign showing the abnormal oscillatory movements of the eyeball. Abnormal oscillatory rhythmic movements of the eyeball. That is the sign he or she is showing nystagmus is in it. Then action or the intention tremor. So his hands, they are shaking. This is called the tremor. One you have done already in the Parkinsonism, in the basal ganglia. That was because the tremor were the rest tremor. There is a difference in the cerebellar tremor and the Parkinson. In the Parkinson, they are called the rest tremor. Why is it called rest tremor? Because when the patient is resting, but his hands are shaking. So they are continuous. Only sleep can stop the Parkinsonism. So they were called the rest tremor. That when the person is at rest, even then the tremors are there. But in this, when the person is at rest, no tremor. When he will do some work from the hand, he wants to pick up something, only then the tremors will appear. So such a tremor, they are called the intention or the action tremor. When he is he is using his muscles of the hand and the upper limb, then the tremors appear. Otherwise, at rest there is no tremor. So such tremor, they are called the action or the intention tremor. Then disequilibrium. He cannot stand, he cannot sit. He will fall. When he is sitting, he will fall right or left. He can't stand. If he stands, he will fall forward, backward, right or left. So that is he is showing the sign of disequilibrium. If you touch the muscles of the person, usually when you touch your own muscles, see your below the skin, your muscles, they are hard to feel. They are called the tone of the muscle. But in these patients, the muscles, they are wax-like. They are soft. No hardness is there. They are glue, dough-like below the skin. So that is they are showing the hypotonia or atonia. The tone of the muscle is lost. So these are the signs and symptoms you have to remember. A list, 7 wonders of the word and 7 signs and symptoms. So how to remember throughout your life all these signs and symptoms? Think of a drunken person. You might have seen a fully drunken person in the movies or in the reality also, somewhere in the surroundings also. So whatever a drunken man is showing, that is called the all signs and symptoms of the cerebellum. His cerebellum is not damaged. He is only drunken, alcohol very high, but he is showing the all signs and symptoms of the dramatic way a drunken man shows. So I can exemplify you. For example, you are going to some party. As usual, you are late. You are entering the party at 11 o'clock in the night. All the guests have left the venue, but your friend is there in the open garden. He is standing there. You recognize him that he is my friend, but he is totally drunk. Now he is your friend. You will call him. You come. He will come to you. See how he is coming. He cannot come you straight, because he cannot have a straight line. His walk is drunken. He will go like this. So he is showing the first sign, that is called the ataxia. Ataxia means taxi. How to remember? Ataxia means taxi drunk. He cannot make the taxi. Then he will come to you. He will come to near to you. So whenever we approach somebody or we stand in front of somebody, what happens? there is a social distance. We cannot go bump into the person. We cannot stand 2 meters away from a person. This is called social distance. And no teacher, no parents tell us what should be your distance while you are talking to some person. This is social distance. It comes with automatically to the humans. This is called the dysmetry. How many meter or how many distance you have to stand from a person. So he will bump on you, he is just over you. Now he is showing the second sign, dysmetry. He doesn't know where to stand. Why it is so? Because there is an incoordination of the muscles of the right side of the lower limb and left. The first sign, first function of cerebellum is lost. Coordination of the muscular voluntary movements. That is why he is showing the ataxia. That's why he is showing the dysmetria. Then he is your friend. Just for the joke, you say, "What is your name?" He will say, he is saying what he is saying. He is speaking his own name, but you can't, because syllables cannot be understood. He is showing the third sign, that called dysarthria. Incoordinate. For the speaking or the speech, we want the coordination of the muscles of lips, muscles of tongue, and muscles of larynx. When three muscles coordinate, then only the words will come. But there is now incoordination of all of them. His lips are moving away in other direction. He is totally drunk person. So he is showing the dysarthria. Then see his eyes. A drunken man's eyes, they are never fixed. They are dancing. They are oscillating. They are showing the abnormal movements. This is called nystagmus. Because for the constant gaze in the head and neck, you will study the muscles of the eyeball. There are 4 muscles balancing our eye. And now there is no coordination between these 4 muscles. So he is showing the nystagmus. Then he is already drunk. You will say, you will take one more peg, he will say yes. He will say yes. Now offer him the peg. He is standing. But as he is approaching the glass, see, his hands start moving and shaking, and he will throw the glass. He cannot do this thing, yes. This requires coordination of thumb and finger, which is lost. So he is showing the rest, he is showing the action tremor. When he is approaching the target, when he is approaching to hold something, then the tremors appear and he will break the glass and he cannot grip it because grip is lost. Coordination of muscular movement is lost. So he is showing the another sign, that is called action or intention. Then he is standing in front of you for so many time it has lost as you have offering him glass and seeing everything. And see how he is showing, he is sitting like this. He is swaying his body. Ultimately what will he will fall. Now he is showing the disequilibrium. He cannot stand for a long time. Because when he is standing, his one leg is here, other is here, and whole of the body is swaying like this. Ultimately he will fall. That is called the disequilibrium. Now you are his friend. This is your duty to pick him up, put in your car to his home. So now you lift him. As you lift, as you touch the body of your friend, see the muscles. As you lift the limbs, upper limb or lower limb, just below your skin, you will feel that just below the skin, muscle, they are so soft. They are almost no tone. So he is showing the last sign, that is the hypotonia of the ear. So this is how to remember lifelong. See a drunken man, imagine a drunken man like this. He is showing each and every sign of the what is called dysfunction of the or disease of this. So this is the easiest way to remember all these signs. But whenever a patient is coming to a doctor whose cerebellum is having TT and H, he is not a drunken. His parents are bringing him with the support and he is sitting in front of the clinic, in front of you in the clinic. You have to perform certain tests when you are doubtful whether his cerebellum is working or no. So these are called the cerebellar function test. So number first sign is you have to check the test is called the straight line test. Straight line test. Ask the patient to walk on a straight line. He will walk zigzag. Now he is showing the test. It means cerebellum is not working. So that is called the straight line test. Second is finger nose tip test. Finger nose tip test. Ask the patient to close the eyes and touch your tip of your finger with the nose. Now normally you can check yourself. We can check. We can touch our tip of our nose without seeing it. But that person who is having cerebral dysfunction, put here, he will do like this. He will lie like this. Or he will fall like this. So he doesn't know. He is the dysmetria. This is dysmetria. Incoordination of the muscles to a pinpoint distance of a subject or the object. So that is how you test the finger nose tip test. Then comes the tremor test. In the tremor test, you offer the glass of water, or you will say that lift my paperweight on my table. Just see his hands, they are shaking. Now he is showing the cerebellar dysfunction test, the tremor test. Then disequilibrium test. Disequilibrium test is done. Ask the patient to supinate and pronate. Supination and pronation of the both the limbs together. We won't be able to do. We can easily do. But when he will do, when he is supinating, this is pronation. So there is incoordination of the muscular movements. So they call this supination pronation test. Supination pronation test. So this is how we finish with the cerebellum. Next time we will do the 420.